Hey, hello guys. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you all are doing really well. This is your host Suraj Mate here, and today we have a wonderful personality with us. Today we have Abhijt Reddy sir. Sir actually came back from USA. He worked with startup ecosystem there in USA, and he's also working the same in India as well. So let's ask him some interesting questions. Let's understand his perspective regarding Indian startup space, how he's going to help them, and if you are into startup, how to reach this guy. So let's go. I know my background sucks. So guys, Abhijit is with us. So Abhijit, can you introduce yourself and tell us both your experiences in startup ecosystem, both in US and in India?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here. Like every or most Hyderabadis, I did my engineering here and then I went to the US. I did my master's there and just so happened to find an internship at a startup. I had no idea what a startup was at that point. But after working at that startup for a few months, I kind of immediately fell in love with that idea of working in this small company that is rapidly trying to ship things all the time. So from then on, I just kind of moved from one startup to another as I kind of kept trying new things. I was a mobile developer in the beginning. I built apps for Nokia phones. It was a music streaming company called Group Shark. It's unfortunately shut down now. But I used to build apps for Nokia phones, and then from there, I kind of wanted to diversify to understand how you build software for everything, not just phones. So I kept kind of exploring, and I went from one startup to another, and then eventually found myself working in New York. So I've been there for about 15 years. All of that has been working in
Okay,
startups.
means from last 15 years you have been into software company, so
Yeah,
like the software
that's
industry and
yes,
all.
that's correct. But my last two companies I worked for were both into fintech, and because the company I joined before this called On Deck was into fintech, and I found that I kind of liked that space. I understood, slowly understood that space. I want to stay in that space, so I found another startup in New York that was also a very technology focused product, and I liked the CTO and the CEO. And I joined that startup. Been there about 6 years. I think it's been a great experience so far.
So we'll start with your motivation. So what actually motivated you to come back to India and actually invest yourself into the startup industry also?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a hard question to answer, to be honest. I think there's a lot of great things going on in the US, especially if you're in the Bay Area or in New York already. You know, working in tech or any other kind of high earning jobs, right? But there's a few things that make it a little difficult as well. I think one is immigration, especially for most Indians. It's not very welcoming to a lot of Indians. Uh, we don't need to go into the details of that, but
Yeah.
essentially, if you're an Indian citizen, you'll end up waiting, most probably your whole life for that green card or a citizenship. Um, so even if you're not looking for a green card or whatever, and you want to work in startups, you're that kind of person who wants to build product, who wants to build something from scratch or very early on. It's very hard for someone on a work visa to find a startup that is able to take them, mostly because of regulations around who can apply for visas, how much they need in the bank to apply for that visa. Most of these startups they barely have any money, so they're not going to spend 20K on lawyers or 10K on lawyers to hire someone on a visa. So there's many barriers if you are that kind of person who wants to take those risks, who wants to build something from the very early on. As a result, your
like
own.
like you want to say means for immigrants it's difficult in US to build the startup and to make it grow.
Yes, it's not impossible, especially if you're in the Bay Area. I think a lot of attorneys and venture capital companies, uh, they have ecosystems where they can kind of help you as a founder, immigrant founder, to build, but it's not available to a lot of people. Not everyone can just go and say, "Hey, I'm a founder. I have an idea. Can you just set me up with a visa so I can work on my product?" It's not that easy for most people. And then there's a few other things. Obviously, families here, and the the growth and the optimism in India the past few years at least has been phenomenal. There's a lot of things that are being done in India, which I personally think are way ahead of where the US is. I think a lot of advancements and developments in the payment space. I don't think anyone comes close to where India is. Maybe China does. Similarly, a lot of people complain about healthcare. We've been to. I have two kids. We've been through healthcare scenarios there. It's not very pleasant, both cost-wise, experience-wise. It's not very easy. Kind of confusing and cumbersome. Whereas here you have, I'd say, better than better than US infrastructure when it comes to healthcare. Obviously, it's not available to all. You have to be, I think, the top 10%, 20% of income earners to be able to afford that. But to whoever can afford it, it's way better than what the US has to offer in terms of healthcare, and way cheaper. I think it's just the whole infrastructure and healthcare ecosystem is so much more efficient here, so it's way cheaper than what it is in the US. And then apart from that, there's just this incredible investment going on in public infrastructure that you I don't think the US has seen in the last 10, 20 years even. Essentially, the US started building like crazy after World War II. Uh, Dwight D. Eisenhower was the president after World War II. Put all these soldiers and veterans to work, and they built the interstate system. They built railways. They built a lot of airports. So that there was this big or huge surge in public infrastructure, and then slowly it started tapering down. And now, in most cities, they can't even build housing. Housing is a really scarce asset. Whereas you look around in India and Hyderabad and any other big city, there's just a ton of infrastructure, right? They're building roads, they're investing in public transit, railways, airports, bridges, and then even um, so it's skipping my mind. But generally, the public infrastructure investment here is way ahead of what's going on there. Even housing, right? The most of the tier two cities, tier one cities and tier two cities, they're gonna double their population in the next 15 to 20 years. So if you take Hyderabad, that's 11 million. So Hyderabad's population approximately is 11 million people. In the next 18 to 20 years, another 11 million people are going to be in Hyderabad.
Yes.
So where are these people going to live? So you can see that there's continuous housing being built, right? So infrastructure and housing both are being built. So I think that kind of shows that despite who's in power, who's in the chief minister, prime minister seat, the country as a whole is kind of investing, and they want to make it better for everyone, and that provides a lot of opportunity for everyone. So there's like a renewed optimism and enthusiasm in India that kind of draws anyone who wants to build. I'd say it's almost like a FOMO, fear of missing out. If you're on the outside watching, you're in a 2% economy, watching a 6 or 7% economy grow, you're obviously going to feel like you're missing out on that growth.
So we'll focus on another point, like the challenges faced by the Indian startups. So, you said, means infrastructure is growing at a fast rate in India compared to US. But like considering the startups, the new growing companies. So, what do you think? What are the challenges that are still there in India for them to grow compared to the US?
Yeah. So I think generally we've not had that capitalistic mindset. If you look at our previous generations, there was a lot of there's a lot of focus on socialism and kind of government doing everything. People didn't want to take risks. Government jobs were like the holy grail of careers, right? If you get a government job, that's it, you're set for life. So there was that kind of thinking. It was more socialistic. I'd say some of the states even had communist governments, right? West Bengal, Kerala. I think even Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, there were pockets where there were elected representatives who were from a communist party. So I think there was that mindset even up until the 2000s, I would say. And then I think slowly it started shifting into a more capitalistic or centrist point of view, where people felt, there's 50 years of socialism. I don't think it has done much. Maybe we should try this thing. We should take some risks, build something and see if there's opportunity for us. And that kind of naturally just I think kind of seeped into society, and you saw people taking more and more risks, businesses being built, companies being built,
Yes.
And slowly you could see the holds of the Communist Party just kind of going away. I don't think there is even or very few representatives from any Communist Party in any state in the country. But we're still nowhere near where the US is. Right? If you put that as the gold standard of capitalism or of risk taking, we still have a long way to go. I think there it's just a given, right? People just it's kind of weaved into society. People just like taking risks, or it's fine, acceptable to take a risk, build something, even if it doesn't work out or it doesn't work out, move on to something else in your life.
So means it's like capitalism makes small businesses grow,
Yeah.
but we still have somewhat scarcity of capitalism compared to the US.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think year by year you see more and more of it.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a way to go. So a few examples that I've heard when I'm talking to the founders here is they are unable to convince other people to become co-founders because there's pressure from families and whatnot, parents saying that they don't support this risk-taking endeavors, that they want their kids to have a job that pays a salary, and that they there's also some emotional atyachar that goes on, because most people take a loan to go study, so they have a debt they need to pay back. So all of this kind of still kind of is holding back some people.
It's a tendency in majority of Indians to always choose a secure path, which is very well mentioned in that good rich dad poor dad.
Okay. I would say that's where most people gravitate towards. It's also there's also a somewhat of a misconception in the I would say with most people, where they think if you're starting something, obviously everyone understands your chance of failure is high,
Yes.
but it doesn't mean that you can't have any income at all.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is if you're building something and you find some product market fit and you're scaling, you always get funding, and then you can pay yourself a little bit, be reasonable and be a good custodian of the money the investors gave you, but you can still pay yourself something, and then kind of continue building that business. But yes, the initial period there might be time where your cash flow is net negative, and so I think there's people here ready to take that risk, but I think there's still a way to go. Maybe 5 years, 10 years, you'll definitely see a much bigger change. So one example is when I left, I think there were maybe maybe not even a single product company out of Hyderabad. In all of India, maybe there were 5 or 10 at most. I don't even think there were 10 in the entire country. All the software companies were all service-based companies.
Yes.
Now they're not just like thousands, tens of thousands product companies, but there's actually 15 or 20 unicorns. These product companies in a span of 10 years, they went from 0 or 5 product companies to tens of thousands, and then of those, there's like at least a few that are worth $1 billion or more. So I think it clearly shows there's that we're on the right trajectory. But I think at least in Hyderabad, we need a lot more of this risk-taking ability,
Yes.
a lot more glorification of, or I won't say glorification, at least
Awareness.
I'd say we have to dispel the negativity towards risk-taking and capitalism.
So we'll go to mentorship and guidance as we are going to help the startups in India. So this is your real motive, right? So how you are going to provide the mentorship to startups, and what do you think? Which are the areas where startups actually need such kind of mentorship or such kind of guidance?
Yeah, so I'm actually focused solely on Hyderabad and startups working out of Hyderabad. I met about 10 or 11 founders over the last month or so, and I think one of the big problems, very ironic for Hyderabad, is that they can't find enough or any tech co-founders. All the founders I met, they actually had a product. Some of them have had the product for a few years, so they're in business, they're making money, and they want to scale out, they want to automate, right? They want to build so that it's not just for a small population, for them. So they need technical co-founders to help them build this. And despite of being in Hyderabad, where almost every Bay Area company has a big office, it's been very hard for them to find technical co-founders.
So why like finding co-founders in India is so hard? Like India is known for its technical advances. Like people are too much technical. They have good knowledge. Like in US, you can see big names which are only Indians. So why in India itself finding co-founders for the companies? So it's getting difficult.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a problem in India. I know it's a problem in Hyderabad. I don't like, for example, it might be much easier in Bangalore or Mumbai, but I can just guess. This is my educated guess. I don't know what the real reason is.
Okay.
But again, it kind of comes back to that risk-taking ability. If you're an engineer who has 5 or 7 years of experience, you're mid-level engineer, not even mid-career, early career still, but enough to be considered a senior engineer. You get a job in any of the FANG companies here. You're looking at a payment of 1 to 2 lakhs a week, right? That's a very high standard of living for Hyderabad. Earning that money, it's a very good paycheck, reputed company, whatever. Uh, it kind of demotivates you to again take a risk. Let go of that big paycheck to go back to zero.
Like means you already put yourself in some kind of comfort zone, and you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So now you don't want to, or very few people actually, after working for 5 years or 6 years for Google, say, this is too comfortable. I don't want this. I want to go back to working out of a small office somewhere, not in a posh building, some small co-working space, not have a paycheck for a year. Very few people want to do that. And again, there's on top of that, there is the whole parental pressure. I think once, if I don't have data to back this up, but once you're about employed for 5 years or so is when people want to get you married. So no one wants you to leave your cushy job and take a risky bet somewhere just when they want to get you married. So, and then once you get married, obviously there's that additional pressure of, I mean, you could be married to someone who is also earning, and I would think that would be a good way for you to take the risk, or
Risk,
one of the persons to take the risk, right?
yes.
But I think I kind of just keeps going in that direction where, oh, okay, I got married, now I need to buy some assets. I don't want to give up. I can't give up. I can't afford to give up this paycheck. Kind of keeps going. So this mentality is everywhere. Uh, there's groups of people, right? There's a group that wants to take risks. There's a group that doesn't want to take any risk, and it's always every place in the world has that division of people. But I think, at least in my experience, it looks like Hyderabad, there's a lot more people who are on the on the risk averse side, and very few on the, at least in technology and software engineering, very few people on the risk taking side. Yeah, risk taking side.
Okay. Like most of the time we see this kind of thing comes from the cultures, like the background they belong to. Like in India also, there are some peoples mostly the Gujaratis and Marwadis. They are more into risk taking. They are more into businesses compared to the others, right? What kind of education do people actually need to improve that risk taking ability?
Yeah, I don't think it's directly related to education. I think one of the patterns here is, any human being just gets comfortable with whatever they're seeing a lot of. They repeatedly see something, they slowly get more comfortable towards it. So in some communities, you will see there's a lot more risk takers, a lot more people opting to run a business instead of going and working somewhere. So if you're in a family where there's many people who've taken those risks and they were encouraged, or they're not looked down upon, then as you're growing up, that'll feel normal to you. That'll feel like a viable option for you to pursue yourself, because your family is not gonna pressure you, your society is not gonna make you feel bad or anything. And you have seen some people actually succeed, so you slowly get comfortable with it and you're okay taking that risk. But if on the contrary, if you're coming from a family where, or from a background where most people are just salaried employees, it's harder for you to make that transition. You probably have to unlearn it. Once you start working, then you see, oh, this is an option. I see these people who succeeded in that, and it probably is an option for me, and I should try it out. So it depends on what you've seen and what you were taught. Um, if you look at the education system here, it's not, at least when I was studying, it was never even a topic of discussion. I think in my 4 years of engineering here, there was um, one class at the end of in the last semester about entrepreneurship. Even that, it was more of a check mark, just so that, just to say that they actually taught that course. But yeah, that's like, that amount of exposure is not enough, right? There's this idea of a field trip where, I don't know, I think they took us to a electricity distribution substation, which has nothing to do with my major, but anyways. So use those opportunities to take, if you're a software engineer, go look at what products are being built, look at go to a co-working space, look at how people are building a product. If you're there's companies building across the spectrum, right? There are companies building software, there are companies building actual tangible products. If you're a mechanical engineer, industrial engineer, you have a lot of scope. Obviously, there's like a ton of construction. You're a civil engineer, you can actually go and see how things are being done, how they started, who took the risks, how they build the product, what they do day to day. And that if you have a class of 100 students, you open up this kind of world, or this exposure to these students, uh, there's a better or higher chance that maybe one or two of these students will actually think about of taking those risks. And it's not just about the risk-taking ability; it's also about a pain point. Both of these together form a good idea. Is there should be a pain point, scarcity of a product or resource,
Yes.
someone feeling the pain, a pain, buying something or availing a service, something, and these people have to connect to that. They should have experienced it in their own life, and they should also have that ability to take that risk. And those two together is a good breeding ground for startups coming up.
So I would like to ask you the advice for the aspiring entrepreneurs. So, what advice do you have for the entrepreneurs, specifically who are going to start in India?
Oh, that's a tough question. Considering I wouldn't consider myself an entrepreneur. I mean, I did take some risks, but wouldn't consider myself an entrepreneur. Uh, so maybe not a question for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, no
yeah.
problem. So, we'll have your closing thoughts. So, what else you want to share with our viewers regarding the startups in India?
Uh, I think, generally speaking, I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of support, a lot of uh, change in the community, in the city, in the people, in the policies of the government to taking these risks and building something new for people in India, or for people anywhere in the world. So it's actually a great time to be in Hyderabad and to build something. Um, there's a lot of funding available. There's angel systems, VCs, even in Hyderabad. Uh, the only thing we're missing is people who are willing
Yeah,
to take those make those big bets in life and actually build something for for us, for ourselves, and for the world. So with I would like to say that as a side project, I did start buildinhyderabad.com.
okay,
Uh, Basically, I offer free tech consults for anyone who's building out of Hyderabad, and also anyone looking for founders or anyone wanting to be a founder or co-founder can sign up on buildinhyderabad.com, and we'll try to match them with other co-founders and founders, and hopefully get something going.
okay. Like you are saying, means we have a ample amount of infrastructure
Yes.
for startups to grow,
Yeah.
but there is a scarcity of risk takers,
Yes.
like those who want to enter this space.
Correct. Yes.
Like yes, I also saw the T Hub and all this kind of stuff just for new startups,
Yeah.
the government associated things,
Mhm.
and yeah, they are good. So the next thing is like you are into helping the startups, like you want to help startups in India, so specifically in Hyderabad, you are saying. So how people can reach out to you, like
Yeah, I have Twitter, I have LinkedIn, but I think easiest might be just go to buildinhyderabad.com, and
okay,
there's
buildinhyderabad.com, right?
yes, you should put it in the
Yeah,
comments or
yeah,
somewhere
I'll put
or
it.
description. But there's a link to my Twitter and also my LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can also directly just
Yes,
put
yes.
something on my calendar on buildinhyderabad.com.
Yes,
Yeah.
you guys can reach out to him on buildinhyderabad.com. It's completely free. He's not charging anything. You can go to him if you have any issues, any doubts regarding your startup. Even before starting the startup, before entering into this space, you can actually take his consult. And yes, I will also put the LinkedIn as well as his Twitter IDs into the description, right?
Sounds good.
So this is the question I'm going to ask to everyone. What do you think is the most unexplored space in startup, right? In the business, like in India, anyone wants to have some kind of startup. So, what is the space which is not even not very well explored?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I personally think is that almost every unicorn or every product that's being built out of India is aimed at, or I'd say most of them are, vast majority of them are aimed at tier 1 cities, and even within those tier 1 cities, the top 30% of income earners.
Yes.
If you look at the stats, that's probably less than of the 1.3 billion people. That's less than, I would say, 100 million or even 50 million
Yes.
people.
Sure.
So the rest, the other 1.2 billion people, are don't actually see any value in these products. It's not built for them.
Yeah.
So that's a huge space. If you think about, let's just pick finance, right? There's no fintech products for any of these that cater to any of these people. A lot of these people, I'd say, big chunk of them, they're not even in the system per se. They don't
Yes.
pay income tax. They're working on daily wages. Um, there's a lot of potential there for that can help these people kind of keep climbing the social and income ladder. And I don't think nothing comes close to even addressing or even thinking about that population and what products can be built for that. So that's a huge space, I think.
Yeah, like most of the unicorns which are built, so they are mostly focusing on the top 30% of the top tier cities, right?
Yes.
And so most of the villages and lower tier cities are even unexplored for the businesses. So that was it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Nice to meet you.
yeah, nice. Thanks for having me.
Hey, hello guys. So this was the first time I was interviewing someone. So obviously it was not that great. Also the background noise was making it even worse. So but I know these kind of things are going to improve with time and with experience. So but still, if you like such kind of content, you can consider subscribing to my channel, hit like to this current video. And if you are into startup and want to explain your products and services to people, just reach out to me. I have put my mail ID in the description box. You can mail there. And till then, I would say work hard, enjoy hard.
Justin Diamond, Alvin, let's go. Yeah, 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 yeah.